Lots of quiet.
How are you finding being at a English convention versus an American convention?
Actually, I have more experience with UK conventions than I do with American ones. But there's a different speed to them here. In America, they've got, you seem to be, at least that's my feeling, you're shunting from place to place really quickly. And it's all cut and dry. Here, it's a little more kicked back. People can relax a bit and enjoy themselves more. I'm having a nice time today because there's a lot of people to talk to. In fact, I just dragged away from a really interesting guy. But anyway.
And obviously you're wearing your gold leader hat today.
Oh, right.
I'm curious what it means for you to be part of the biggest franchise in film history. What it means to be a part of something that has that kind of global and timeless legacy.
That's a really hard question because I'm not a kind of celebrity person. And I look around and I see a lot of celebrity culture going on, and I look at that and I go like, oh, actually, I was in a really major movie. But I don't want to be a celebrity. I'm not interested in that. But it's got a really odd resonance, you know, when you sort of look back at a career and that, I mean, I've never been a star and I never wanted to be one. I'm just a supporting actor. That's my job. But knowing that you're part of something like that, it's got a nice resonance to it inside. It feels nice. It feels, yeah. I mean, I've done other pictures that I'm very proud of, and I worked with directors that I've loved working with in a purely creative way. But Star Wars is something that sort of transcends that. It was a good movie as a movie, but it also has this sort of social bell that rings, and yeah, it's good. And I think there is something to be said to be aware of the dark side, you know, especially these days. A lot of dark side going on.
I mean, in terms of those directors you've worked with, obviously, I mean, starting with George Lucas, of course, gave an entire generation of people an escape on the big screen. What was it like working with him at particularly such an early point in his career?
It was funny because I had very little experience with directors at that point, other than theater directors, which is a completely different process. And so this was my second film director. Now, the first film director I worked with was Norman Jewison, who had already won an Academy Award for In the Heat of the Night and did some fabulous movies. And I sat on that set of Rollerball for months, just watching, not even working. I mean, I was there to watch. And then working with George he was the second director I worked with. And he worked completely differently. He wasn't as involved with the actors. And of course, the stuff that I was doing was very production line, if you want to call it that each actor was doing their battle scene. It was like, you do yours, the next guy was going into the cockpit doing his, the next guy was doing his. So we had a very, a work process relationship rather than any kind of actor-director relationship. George needed to get stuff done, and he needed people that could do it. And so all of us lined up and we did our part. And so it was a different experience. And later on, I worked with so many other directors, and every director works differently. And some people are demanding, really demanding. Other people are sort of like, well, just try something, see what happens. You know, that sort of thing, rather than cut and dry. So it's a different, but I mean, I know other actors that worked with George longer, so I mean, they have their own opinion too. So I mean, the kind of director that he is every director's different.
Obviously, going back to like how you're acting, is there kind of a specific way / style when driving an X-wing that you kind of to portray this kind of intergalactic, futuristic spaceship? Like, how do you act?
I think most of us, certainly I used sort of the Battle of Britain pilots as a template. How would a person react in that kind of situation because it was very much a feel of like a dogfight, World War II dogfight, and except hyperspeed. So I suppose it's just a matter of slotting yourself into that moment and trying to empathize with how a pilot would react under those circumstances. And, you always got movies that you go back to, but as a reference, because you can't really go up in the sky and watch a pilot in a dogfight. I mean, that's not something you can do that, But it's just imagining and letting your imagination work. And that, I don't know if there's any other way to describe it.
Talking about imagination and directors, you also have the pleasure of working with Guillermo del Toro, who's seen by many people as one of this generation's great Imagineers.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about what it was like working with him?
He was one of the most ruthless directors I've worked with. And I think that's the mark of a great director, is that he knew we'd be doing a scene, we'd be watching a scene, and he knew whether it was working or wasn't working, and he would fix it instantly. And there was one case, I walked onto the set of Hellboy, and there was a scene going on, and there was an action happening. And I walked up to where he was working. He was working at a desk underneath a big canvas tent because we had rain going on like crazy. And they were shooting this scene. It was quite technical, and he said, and the actor wasn't quite cutting it. And he came up to me, he looked at me, and he said, "Are you ready to work?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Go and do that scene." I said, "What?" I said, "Guillermo, you can't." He said, "No, you got to go and do that scene." I said, "Guillermo, you can't ask me." He said, "You've got to go do it. We need it now. We got to go." And I knew what he was talking about, because in the movie business, there's no hiding from a camera. It's not going to happen. And if it's not working, and he could sense that, he just changed it. And I thought, that's tough. It was tough on the other actor, and tough on me, but it was tough on him too, to do that just so ruthlessly. But that's what it takes to do really good work. And he was dead impressive to watch. Didn't care what people were going through either. Oh, we were cold on that shoot. Oh boy, it was bad, but we had to do it. If you really want to do art, and I think that's what he does. I think what he does is art as much as filmmaking, as commercial stuff.
I mean, obviously that's a great opening scene, but it sounds like it wasn't a lot of fun to shoot. Can you talk a little bit about fighting Nazis in the rain?
It was a nightmare. I mean, that was the first time in my life I think I watched icicles form. I was standing on the set watching icicles form, and I thought, oh, geez, this is really, really ugly. Because we were, in 4 rain towers going all the time, and it was between 5 and 10 below zero Celsius. And we were literally floating in our boots. I mean, we were full of water. And I saw things on that set were just surreal. At one point we had a break, and there was all these guys playing the Germans, and they were all huddled around one of these big blow heaters. And the light was on it, and it was so bizarre. This whole huddle of guys, maybe 50 guys, all huddled around this, trying to get warm, and a column of steam rising into the air from it. And it was something out of Dante's Inferno. It was astonishing to watch, but we were bloody cold. I mean, it was nasty. It was really nasty. We were on the set for like 4 hours, freezing cold and soaking. And finally, one actor went to the hospital with hypothermia on a drip, and we were like, "Hey, wait a minute, this is enough." So that was a very, very difficult shoot. I've never in my life, I've never told anybody this, but I'll tell you guys because I'm an idiot. As the first time, or the only time in my entire career, in the 40, how many years I've been working, I was in my hotel room, and I kept looking at the airline ticket. It was sitting on my desk. I kept thinking to myself, I can call a cab, and I can go to the airport, and I can get on an airplane. Get the hell out of here. I was that close. I kept looking at it thinking, no, I can't do that. I eventually didn't, obviously, but I was so tempted. It was just like, just pack the bag and leave. Get out of here. Yeah, it was work, that one. But it was good. I mean, the footage is great. It looked wonderful, and I was very pleased with it. So, yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit about your short episode Vikings?
It was too short. I was really angry about that. I mean, how can you have an immortal guy that gets killed? I mean, it was just so bad. You know, they should have just said, no, just keep him going for like. But it was, those guys were crazy. I mean, all the actors, I've worked with a lot of actors, but boy, were they nuts. They really thought they were Vikings. I mean, they were right into it. And they swept you up in it. It was great. It was so exciting. I found myself one morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, on the Boyne River in Ireland, in a most beautiful Viking ship with a sword in one hand and an axe in the other, and thinking, oh my God, it's like, since I was a kid, I wanted to play a Viking. And I was standing there, I'm an old fart now, but I mean, it's like, the rush of adrenaline was just so pure. It was just we had the Saxon villages on the side, so we're floating down there, and behind us is 2 other boats. So there's three ships going up the river, and I'm sitting there going, and there's that mist, that weird mist you get on the water. I'm looking around, oh my God, I'm gonna die. This is perfect. Take me. Valhalla, please. No, it was such a trip. I mean, everybody was so into the whole Viking thing. I mean, they were right. I mean, these guys were eating it, eating the sawdust off the floor. I mean, they were amazing guys, amazing actors. The Irish, cuckoo. No, they were great. I had a really nice time with them. I had a wonderful time. But they were just so serious about. I mean, the whole production was so serious about what they wanted to do. They had armorers there stripping swords down. I mean, breaking them down right on the set and then rebuilding them. I was going like, wow, these guys are amazing. Oh, we don't need that kind of sword. Let's use one of these. And there were other people, even down to the carpenters. This is what the film industry is about. It's like everybody good at their job, and everybody really doing it when they needed to do it. You got to have a set ready. It's done. It's like so quick because everybody's good. That's why I love the business. It's like, if you go onto a set and you watch people fix stuff or repair or get things done, it's just astonishing. I've seen people put a wall up and paint it in a half an hour. I need a wall there. Oh, okay. Guys come in, guns come out, painters come in, and then they blow air at it and they say you're done. There you go. The door works. You go, okay. But that's making it up, and that's the play thing that we have in movies, which makes it, or in the theater, it's that play aspect of it. That's why they're called players, and because you're supposed to play, and we do play, and we have a lot of fun, and you should in any work. But when you're doing something creative and you're having fun, it's electric. It's that moment where you say, yeah, I know why I'm alive. I guess some people get that jumping off of mountains, but I never had the parts to jump off mountains. Anyway. So anybody else?
Can I ask quickly, on your arm, is that a tattoo or is someone stamped you?
This is a tattoo. This is the real deal. I got in such trouble for this. My wife wasn't thrilled that I got, this is the rebel guy, the rebel insignia. It's upside down.
Oh, yeah.
It's the real thing. Hey, I got talked into that.
It's quite cool though. It kind of looks like a birthmark version. It's like you were born to be in an X-wing.
I love you.
There's a lot of love for you right there.
Okay. No, let's be serious here. Do you have any questions?
I have a question. I think following on from
you mind if I drink water?
Yeah, no, go
It's
for
not
it.
vodka by any chance.
Unfortunately, no.
No,
We've already had that.
it's really depressing. Oh, sorry, it's a really bad joke.
No, as in we've already had the vodka.
I guess my question is, you talked before about obviously those cockpit moments in Star Wars, and I think of all of the great pop culture references that Star Wars has given us, those scenes and those little bits of dialogue, particularly pre-battle, have seemingly seeped into popular culture more than almost any other, and there's been lots of different parodies and joke versions, and but I'm curious if you have any favourites, and if you know maybe why those, gold leader, red leader standing by moments stuck in people's minds so much.
I have no idea, but I'll tell you a story that's very funny. I just had some dental work done, and I got a new dentist because my other dentist crapped out. He did bad work, so I went to this guy. And I said, look, you got to fix this tooth because I'm going to this event on the weekend. And he said, okay. So what is it? And that's why I said, I was in this movie called Star Wars. And he said, really? And I said, yeah. So please fix the tooth because I don't want to look like a pirate when I go to see you again. And so afterwards, he did all this work, and he did a fabulous job. I was so thrilled with him. And then he said to me, he said, do you know something? He said, I've got a confession. I said, what? He said, I used to say to people when I was going into their mouths, we were starting our attack run. Are you kidding? He said, no, I swear to God. So, yeah, it's like my dentist used it. I mean, I couldn't believe it. So it's like, I don't understand that, but I guess they just, yeah. There's memes, they call them, yeah, it's good. Very funny. Anyway.
I've got a question, slightly left field, but one of the oldest sort of games I played on the PC was the Cluedo CD games, which you play Mr. Body in.
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, and it's like,
God.
and it just dawned on me, it's like, it's the body.
That's amazing.
I was because it was one of the earlier games that used like full motion video as part of it, sort of working
Yeah.
mechanics. How was the experience on that project, and how was the project actually pitched to you as an actor?
They pitched it as a game. They said it's going to be this video game, and it was interesting because that was the first time that well, not the first time, obviously, but very early days of video, as you were saying. So it was, I thought, well, why not? And we worked with really wonderful people.
Yeah.
I mean, astonishing cast. And we worked in this big old manor house just outside of Manchester, I think it was. I mean, the place was vast. I mean, they had, it was one of those places you drive into it. It takes you about 15 minutes to get to the house. And there's pheasants everywhere. I mean, there was all these pheasants walking around the street. No, really. And the one of the drivers said, he said, you wait, come August, they'll all vanish. Instantly vanish. Like they know the date, they got a calendar. But we had great fun. I mean, it was like, and it was unusual because you were shooting things with different endings. So you'd shoot a scene 3 or 4 different ways.
Yeah, as well as the different killer is.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was kind of odd. And well, for all of us, it was kind of odd because usually you have, you go to the denouement and that's it. That's how it ends. But this would end, and then you'd end it over here, then you'd end it over here, then you'd end it over here. Or you'd end it in this room or that room. Yeah, it was, but then it sort of disappeared. It didn't actually, I think it was before video games became as popular as they became. I mean, they're like insane now. I don't know what's going on. I don't do games, so it's hard for me to understand it. But I get it. I mean, I get why people love games, and I understand the drive behind it, but I don't. I'm just so crap at it, It's terrible. I'd be the worst. So I stay well away from it. Yeah, that's interesting to bring that up. Fascinating.
Sorry, just one more question, guys.
And then we're out of time. Who's got the question?
Have you,
More silence.
I was going to say, do you have a from your, from having been in such huge franchises as you have been, do you have a particular positive memory of a fan interaction, something that's been meaningful to you, or?
Something I say to a lot of people, I said it earlier today, I was talking to someone, and it's the same thing, is that when I first started doing events like this, I spent I did maybe half a dozen shows, and I was sort of in shock. I didn't quite know what was going on. All people were dressed up, people were dressing up and everything. I thought, this is really weird. These people are really offside. I don't get this. And then I suddenly understood it, and I understood that people love these events because they can come here and be themselves, and they're not judged, and they can step out of their lives, and I think that's a wonderful thing. I think it's great when people can get a safe haven, and I think that's what these events provide, is a safe haven for people who are totally offside anyway, but pretend not to be most of the time. And they're great for it, because it's so unusual to meet an unnice fan, is that a word? A nasty fan, somebody who's not, some people are a little bit crackers, but who isn't? But here it's just, these events are just throw up nice people. And generally, 99% of them are terrific. And a lot of them give and give and give, so especially for charity and things like that. I think it's wonderful. I love fans. I love them to death. Great people.
Thank you.